All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I hate the word webinar, but that's what it is. Welcome to this webinar. We have two awesome guests. We'll get to intros in a sec, but Hannah and Steve are joining us today. We're talking about how to win back lost customers, and not just going to talk about how to win them back, but how to prevent them from leaving in the first place, why they leave, all those sorts of topics related to win-backs. So a few housekeeping notes as we get started. If you have questions during the event, I'm a terrible host. I can't multitask, and like Steve's awesome at this. I was joking before that Steve should just host this one. I don't do a good job of like watching the chat while trying to like think through the topics and carry a conversation. So there's a questions tab in this webinar platform. So put your question there. And then if you see a question that you really want answered, upvote it. And at the end, we're going to take like 10 to 15 minutes to answer questions, and we'll do in the order of the most votes. So vote for the questions you most want answered, put your question in there, vote it up. And at the end, we will take Q&A, but we probably won't stop during, unless Steve and Hannah, unless there's like a really relevant question and you see it. I know y'all are better at watching the chat. So if you see a question and want to answer it in the conversation, that's fine too. We're shooting for an hour, but we may go a little over, especially with the Q&A. And yeah, with that out of the way, I wanted to introduce myself. I think a lot of you know who I am at this point. I host the Sub Club podcast. Hopefully you're listening to the Sub Club podcast. If not, check it out at subclub.com. And I do all that as part of my job at RevenueCat. And RevenueCat is a subscription app platform with a mission to help developers make more money. And I'll drop a little hint in here. One of the things Steve is talking about, I didn't even tell Steve this before, but one of the things in Steve's slides that Steve is talking about, RevenueCat's about to drop a product that makes it like dead simple, like minutes to create the things that Steve talks about. So I won't go any further. The announcement will be soon. We'll be in beta very soon with some of this. But for all the things that we talk about, RevenueCat, we and my colleagues are going to be watching this, and we, pay really close attention to what's going on in industry and try and build the tools to help developers make more money. So without further ado, I'd love for the two of you to introduce yourself. So Hannah, why don't you go first?
Of course. Thank you so much, David. I'm Hannah Parvaz. Don't know why I said that like James Bond, but I'm Hannah. I've been working in mobile for about 12 years now. Usually for the first 10 years of that, I was in-house. I was head of growth 4 times with different companies. I scaled them up from not being on the App Store to having over millions of users. I started my company about 2 years ago now called Aperture, where we work with companies on all stages of the funnel, from awareness to deep retention. And I'll pass over to Steve.
Yeah. All right. Give you the short version. Been in the app space since 2011. And then started a podcast in 2013 to learn from my heroes, to see if I can turn this little side business, taught myself how to code in 2011, turn this little side business into a full-time business. And so I've interviewed the co-founder Shazam. David and I have known each other for years as well. And through that, built an audience who then started coming to me for marketing help. At the time, I didn't know anything about app marketing, but took the leap in 2014 to start this company. And so now we work with some of the biggest brands in the world and also some of the tiniest startups in the world. And we help them with primarily ASO, conversion rate optimization, some UA as well, and Apple search ads too. So, but yeah, we've got a presence on YouTube as well.
50K
Awesome.
followers.
You said that, Hannah. Thank you so much. And Hannah, if you're keeping score, David, I think that's a point, because we're going to cover something from my slides, Hannah. So I don't know if you're keeping score. I'm winning right now. Just
Nice. All right. We do have a quick poll as we're getting started. And so I believe the poll has already gone live. And the question is, are you running any dedicated Winback campaigns yourself? I'm going to answer no. Hannah and Steve, feel free to vote as well. I'm actually working on one of the techniques, and I'll talk about it now in my side project app. I'm working on one of the techniques we're going to discuss today. And so I'll kind of jump in and tell you what I'm doing later. but it looks like we're having some of those results come in, still kind of streaming in. Steve, when did you start your first Winback campaigns?
So I'm adding them to the slides, David, at the end, but we're testing out a new way of discounting that I'll tee up. And if you want me to go into it now, I can, but we're testing out a new way of discounting, and we're trying to see. The early data says this way is performing a little bit better, but right now it's still a little bit too early, but why not let the cat out of the bag?
Yeah, we'll dive deeper into that in the slides. I was curious when you ran your first, like, so you've been in the app business since 2011. When did so I've been in the app business since 2009, and and this month when we release this update to my weather app will be the first time I've done any form of Winback. So 16 years in.
Same.
Hannah, oh, go ahead.
No, it's funny because we've both been doing this, but like you've been able to do more of the indie side, whereas I've been helping others. And so from helping others pretty soon, like I don't know when it was, but like I would say a few years ago. But for me personally, yeah, like very recently, like a couple of months ago. Yeah.
And then how about you, Hannah? When did you first start working on? I guess in-house, right?
I was in-house. So like ever since the first weeks I began working in apps, I was thinking about how can I make sure that people are continuing to come back. CRM was like a huge part of the flow. Actually, at my first company, so probably 2013, 2014, when I was running growth there, it was before there were push notification systems. It was before we send out SMSs in a kind of programmatic way. I worked with my developers to build JSON scripts so that I could send out push notifications to people to try and win people back. There was no scheduling. It was like, I'm going to do this campaign to get people to come back, and it was a free product to use, free to download. It was a ticketing app, but we did focus a lot on, first talking to customers and then understanding then. I refined a lot of my skills at this company, but I used to throw pizza parties to get people to come back, like have and like get people to come down, invite their friends, so there were Winback, but also acquisition. But then from a kind of digital perspective, running Winback ads, trying to retarget existing customers so that they could come back because there was relevant content for them. CRM was a huge part of that. And then also the things that we were doing in the app, we were building functionality for that from kind of the very early stages. And I was really lucky to work with such an amazing product team at that company as well. That was an
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over a decade of experience for you, probably 5+ years for Steve, and like negative 30 days for me. This will be a great conversation. I've been talking to a lot of people about Winback campaigns. I just hadn't done it myself. So let's check in on the poll and see where we're at. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is very relevant. So a lot of folks are like me. 75% of attendees are not running dedicated Winback campaigns. Well, you are in the right place. You're going to be like me, and in the next 30 to 60 days, try one of these techniques because it can make a massive impact. Now, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's like what a huge impact they can have. All right. So I did want to kick things off with kind of the broad question. Like a lot of folks throw this around the term Winback, but I wanted to start with like, what is a Winback? And you kind of alluded to it, Hannah. So why don't we start with you? What does it mean to do a Winback?
Thank you. Steve can fill in anything I miss, but a Winback campaign really is any kind of effort that you do to regain your lost customers. So, someone will have bought your product, they might be churning, or maybe they've downloaded your app, they've taken out a trial, they've canceled. What happens then? How do we get them to come back? How do we prompt them, with internal triggers? They might have their own internal triggers that they see out and about that reminds them about your product, but probably not whenever they've just downloaded it and engaged with it once, perhaps. How do we get them to come back? So that can be through email, that can be through features inside the product, push notifications, ads, all of these different things. So we're going to break down some of these different areas and show you some examples today as well.
Steve, why don't you fill in some more?
Your thoughts on this too. But I think the easiest Winback, and I agree with Hannah, like download and those who didn't buy would be the easiest win back. And that's the biggest pool that you're going to get. And then, and I love you guys' feedback on this, but the second most important segment or cohort that I would say is people who activated a trial and then canceled. That would be the hardest ones, I feel like, are the ones that have already canceled the trial. Like, I think you have that 7-day window to try to get back. But what we've seen from our efforts is the people who have already canceled, it's a lot harder to get them back into your funnel than the ones that are, even the ones that download your app but never paid you. Those are easier to win back versus the ones that have ultimately canceled the trial.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it gets increasingly harder as well. You know, if someone canceled 3 months ago, that's going to be harder again than someone that canceled 5 days ago, because you're falling out of their mind, you know, and we need to get back into people's minds and get back into their, you know, what they're talking about, back into their psyche.
Yeah. And then I think, you know, we were talking about win back specifically of winning them back to purchase. And I think, I mean, none of the terminology in our industry needs to have like an exact specific definition. Like this is the only thing we mean when we say win back. But I also even think broadly about win back as like winning people back to your app. I mean, generally when people say win back, they're talking about like winning back to a paying subscriber or a paying user somehow. But then there's also like winning them back to an engaged free user as well for a freemium app. And so I think it all kind of overlaps. Like you want to win back people who've churned from using the free app and hopefully get them to pay, but you also just want to win them back to like being a user again. And so I think the terminology kind of blends all. Generally, win back would be more specific to winning back to being a paid subscriber, but I think it kind of all blends together as well. The next kind of step in thinking through win backs is to understand why people are leaving. So I wanted to kick that off with you, Steve, and kind of like what are the reasons people leave? And then, but more importantly, it's like, how do you go about understanding those reasons to then design better win back campaigns?
You know, I think the number one reason is going to be probably price versus anything else, and then understanding your features. So the easiest thing you can do, and I see a lot of questions coming in too, is just add some chat. Like I had somebody on the podcast, Aperture, and he talked about having chat. And I was like, dude, I do that on my website, like having some online chat, live chat. You can use chris.chat for free, integrate it in your app to understand and provide the support for your early users, because if they don't understand anything, they download your app. So it's a warm lead. They probably want some support. And so I've gotten some great insights from people who are just chatting with me online, and there's an app on your phone. So it's like a text message that they can send that. That's something that you can do. Obviously, yeah, that's the two that I've heard people not paying you is essentially price and just not understanding the value of the app.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Hannah, how about you? What are some of the ways you've discovered the reasons behind churn?
Steve said price, and that's completely true. You know, price is usually kind of the leading thing that people say in any kind of multiple choice survey, but we want to drill down always into price as well, you know, and price is usually an indicator of I'm not getting value. You know, people will pay that same price for something else. That same valuation they'll pay without thinking on something else. You know, I've gone through so many customer conversations where someone has told me, you know, I don't pay for any subscriptions. And I ask them, you know, well, what about Netflix? What about Spotify? And they don't even perceive those to be subscriptions a lot of the time. They just don't. And what you want to do is get your product to that point where it's a utility. They don't even think about it like it's a subscription. So anyway, to get to understanding why that is, really we start with talking to people. And just like Steve said, you know, if you can build a chat in, that's amazing. If you can get on the phone with them and like really understand inside their minds, what were they expecting? You know, what did they actually see when they came to your product? How does their expectations align with reality? And then starting to kind of build those things in. These are kind of the main ways that we get started, but anything that can be quantitative as well, building in cancellation flows, anything like this will help. Cancellation flows that have a survey as a part of it. I mean, anything like this will help you kind of get a really good understanding of where to get started and where to focus.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing to keep in mind too, especially, it seems like based on the poll that, a lot of this audience is maybe more like me, like you haven't ever run a Winback campaign. So you probably aren't doing a ton of like user research and things like that. I just saw an article. I wish I could remember off the top of my head who published it. I think I just saw it on Twitter yesterday. And the headline was basically like, don't run a beta. And the thrust of the meaning behind that was not like don't beta test your app, but it was like don't rely too heavily on beta testers for feedback. And the point being, when you do this kind of research and when you try and understand what's landing in the product, what's not landing, why are people canceling, why are not canceling, like you don't ask your mom, right? Like she's going to subscribe to your app no matter what. Like you don't ask you don't set up a beta with a bunch of your like close friends and then ask your close friends, like, how much value do you place on this app? Like it's a very skewed perspective. So when you're doing the user research, when you're chatting with users, you should also like try and have some level of context for like who you're talking to and making sure that they are kind of your ideal customer and you're not kind of chasing rabbits. Like one of the toughest things to do, and I fall in this trap all the time, it's like I'm a power user of my app. And so the things I care about in a weather app are very different than like the average person who's willing to pay. And so when you're getting this kind of feedback on price, on the features, on product market fit and things like that, make sure you're getting it from the people who are willing to pay, the people who are your ideal customer profile, not your like friends, not your kind of like, Uber terminally online friends who are beta testing for you. So that's a kind of an important caveat when doing that kind of research, is to really understand that audience.
And I actually
Hannah first, then Steve.
I actually tend to speak to everyone at all stages of the funnel, but it really depends on which area are we trying to focus on and what problems are we trying to solve. So, Steve was saying before, there are people at all different stages. There might be the people that have just installed but not purchased. There's people who've taken out a trial and they're in their trial period. There's people who've canceled their trial and they're even more difficult. So it depends which stage that you're focusing on to try and get that insight. People who have just downloaded and not done anything else are going to have different things to say to you. They're going to have different reasons. They're going to have different motives. They're going to have different expectations. And so whenever we're talking to customers, we talk to them a lot on the phone. We just make a spreadsheet, and one of the dimensions we include is where are they in their funnel? Are they've never activated, they're soft active, they're hard active, they're subscribed but canceled. And then we get to be able to start grouping all of our learnings and then pulling kind of quantitative insights from our qualitative conversations. I would say the other thing that we always make sure that we do as well is not incentivize people up front. It's harder as you get higher up the funnel, actually. It's like the opposite difficulty. It's much harder to get someone who's just downloaded and never done anything to get on the phone with you. But the people who have canceled, even though they're going to be harder to win back, are much more likely to come on the phone with you. But I tend not to kind of give an incentive up front, because you get into this I'm asking my mum situation.
Yeah.
I'm working with a company at the moment who have, I'm not joking, been in research mode for over 5 years before launching their digital product. And that's so kind of different than anything I've ever experienced before, but it's really interesting to see how they've done it. But again, in a paid beta test, closed beta, I'm telling them over and over again, these are not reflections of reality. These are still assumptions, and you're just validating your own assumptions almost by doing it in this way. So the next stage is get that out, get it into the hands of as many people as possible, and then start looking at what is that performance, so that you can start to identify where are our biggest opportunities.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Steve, you had a follow-up too.
No, I was going to say something along the same lines, because I know Hannah's very much pro qualitative feedback too. And I think that's where you have to figure out, like, what is the aha moment of your app? Like, what is the main thing that you want people to experience, get there really, really quick? Because a lot of times I even see clients where they're buried. And sometimes I'll just show, a lot of times I like to say, here's my app, use it, right? And then when they have that sort of feedback like, oh, that's cool. That's what you're looking for. And how do you get to that quicker would help with converting more of the people too.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so the next phase, I want to dive into actual like strategies and tactics. And so I know both of you prepared some slides. So I want to go ahead and dive into those slides now. So Hannah, we'll kick it off with you to talk about like very specifically, once you start to understand some of those reasons, once you have an idea, once you have some subscribers to win back, what does it practically look like to implement these, and what are some strategies that folks on this webinar can actually go test, next week, next month? And a lot of these aren't that hard to do, so just try it. And one last caveat that I will say is, when you're just starting out and you only have, hundreds of subscribers, the, Winbacks, breaking double digits on Winbacks is like industry, like you're going to be doing amazing to like get 10-20%. That's like incredible numbers. And so if you've got, 300 subscribers, just keep in mind, you're not going to like get to 600 by reactivating people who've churned from your app. So keep that in mind, and maybe not everybody jump to do this in the next 30 days. But I think some of Steve's strategies that we'll get to on like winning back people who've started a free trial and people who've abandoned their cart, that's stuff that can have a more direct and quick impact. So those are maybe the strategies to start with. But let's go to some of Hannah's tactics.
Awesome. Yeah, so I wanted to share with everyone just a few really simple things that you can do to just get started. You don't need any kind of complicated setup to do any of the things on the next few slides. These are really, really simple. You don't need a kind of advanced team. You don't need much anything to get started with any of these. So since 75% of people haven't ever done any of these, these are really, good places to start. So I also wanted to share a metric, which was just to what David said, single digits, if you're not kind of running any winbacks or anything like that at the moment, single digits are exactly what we'd be expecting. You're going to have this natural kind of winback loop anyway. And when I was at this company, which is an audio journalism app, before we had started running any winback campaigns, before we'd been doing any kind of winback things, our winback rate was 6%. And we didn't know that was our winback rate either. We went to a benchmarking session. We'd never thought about our winbacks at this company for subscriptions, as a rate or anything like that. And we went to a benchmarking session with our dear friends at Apple, and they were telling us and showing us, what are other products performing like in your peer group. And we found out that the best performing one in our peer group was winning back at a 35% rate. So we understood now we're at 6%, they're at 35%. So that then was identified as a really big opportunity for us. We could 600% essentially increase our rate in a realistic way. And so we started then experimenting a lot with winbacks, and all of these different things are experiments. You're not going to necessarily have every single thing work, but these are some best practices, and you're going to have to put your own flair on them. So this first one here is basically the easiest way to identify with a free trial if someone has canceled. The way in which we do that in a kind of codey data way is by looking at the billing status. So your billing status changes, and this is how you're able to kind of represent that in your product. So what we did here in the product was, if anyone who was on a trial, their billing status changed, we showed them a discount code in their app. They were still coming back. We showed them that they would get 30% off if they would restart or reactivate. And this tapped just to basically go into the double click Apple screen modal thingy. And then I work in tech, and that would then pop up. You would then restart automatically, and when it auto renewed into your payment, which you hadn't even paid at this point, it would be with a 30% discount. And so this is a super simple way to get started. We just added a very simple banner at the bottom. But then we saw such success with this that then we started rolling out similar banners for different stages. We then, if someone had come into the product, they hadn't taken out a trial, we found out what our activation point was. You had to listen to a certain amount of stories to become activated. That was your aha moment. So we found, when someone has got to that point, let's give them a discount. They're warmed up now, they're going to get locked soon, they're not going to have any free access anymore. So now let's start kind of pushing them towards that free trial, towards that subscription. You can experiment in many different ways with a little banner like this, or you can show it through a modal or something like this as well.
I like that. I think, Hannah, I don't know if you agree, but there's a question about when is the best time to do a win-back offer. And I almost feel like almost immediately, right? Like, I don't know when you guys are showing this billing status, but if you haven't paid, like, show them immediately.
Yeah, all the time. Throughout the whole funnel, you should be thinking about how can I retain and how can I win these people back? It's everything that we do. For those kind of pop-ups, I don't know if you've ever downloaded, everyone watching, the app Headway. If you haven't, it's a very interesting flow, and they have just continuous discount offers. You close one, you get another one. They're all win backs, in a way. They're just trying to get you to take one of these off, and take them up on one of these offers. It will be 80% off. Oh, you've missed it. 30% off. Oh, now it's $50 off or whatever. Like, they just constantly changing it, so that's why they've got such an incredible conversion, because they're just constantly experimenting with this. But yeah, right from the very beginning.
I have the visuals if you want them. David,
go on.
Yeah, we can skip to your slides.
Let's do it.
No, I don't. Here, I can just share my screen because I don't have the.
Hey guys.
Here you go.
All right.
Love it.
Oh, nice.
Pretty big onboarding, and then they might have changed things. This is from 2022, 23. But anyways, this is what Hannah. Go ahead, Hannah. Wow.
No, please.
Yeah. So this is the paywall, the onboarding paywall that they have right here. And then I hit view all plans so you can see all of their plans. When you hit X, which because most people will hit X, they have a little gift for you. And this is what Hannah was talking about with the 50% off. Hannah, this is what I really like too. And on second open and every open afterwards, this is like aggressive, right? Like, I really like it. I had Yeva on our podcast and she talked about that. And she said, look, if you're not discounting, you're leaving money on the table. Mm-hmm. And so one of my favorite things is this reading flow. I should probably not give away the entire flow at once, but anyways, so like most content is locked. And one of the things that we've seen good success on is locking up more content. A friend of mine has a crossword app, and I was like, dude, you're giving away a lot for free. And so we locked up more content, and with Headway, they have one free daily read, and that's about it. And then eventually, if you pick a book that's locked, you hit listen or read, you get this paywall, you hit view other plans, you can see the plans here. You hit X, they're like, wait up, we have a free offer for you. You want 70% off. And these are the type of campaigns that I like because they've obviously shown intent. And so this is an easier win back. Like for me, I feel like win back is very, very hard. So we're already climbing a steep mountain, and you want to find the gaps that are easier to convert. And this is one of these flows where I feel like this is easier to convert. Like they've shown intent.
Yeah. And if we're going by stage, I do think this is probably the most effective place. And then I was talking earlier, like this is where I'm actually working in my weather app. We have a hard paywall. And so my first foray into winbacks is that when somebody hits cancel, and we're going to talk about cart abandonment, but this is essentially a cart abandonment. It's like they're hitting X on a paywall. So what we're doing is it's a hard paywall, and you have to start a free trial. But there's a lot of people who, when they see that payment screen, they're just going to hit the X and get out of that payment screen. So baby step. And again, this is where you probably have the most leverage to get people back, is in that initial conversion moment. So either offering a discount, or in our case, what we're doing is we're just offering 7 days completely free. It's just use the app. So starting a free trial, no automatic conversion. A lot of people don't like the automatic conversion, although more and more people are smart with that. They'll start the free trial, and then like literally seconds later, you'll see the event. In RevenueCat, there's like a stream of events, and so you can see like started free trial, and then like literally seconds later, like not even a minute has passed, and they've left the app, turned off the free trial, and then come back to the app. So that's a great place to, in these like cart abandonment moments, is a great place to do it. But I did want to jump back to your slides, Hannah. So, and then we'll kind of get back to more cart abandonment sessions. But let's get back to kind of like the CRM flows and maybe the kind of deeper, once they've already been a subscriber type flow. Looks like my screen's not sharing for some reason.
I think it got hijacked.
Got hijacked by Steve. Well, why don't you?
You want me to take over again?
The slide is to build CRM flows. So why don't you just jump on that while it's loading?
I think it's all, it's all linked. David just said in his own app, he's seeing that as soon as someone takes out a trial, everyone cancels now. The most kind of cancellations that you're going to see in a spike is just after someone has taken out that trial. And then the next most is going to be when Apple send out their reminder email. So these are the two areas that you want to be kind of aware of. So as soon as someone's canceling, you're going to be able to show them that little banner from the previous slide in their app, automatically. You're going to have basically 7 days worth of showing them this. That's a lot of opportunity, coupled with push notifications, coupled with recommendations, emails, and things like this to get them coming back. This can be really good. So to get to the next one, this was an email that went out in January for one of our apps. And what we saw was, taking advantage of January. January is a huge time where people reflect, where people are starting new hobbies, trying to do self-improvement. And this is for an app called Mindful Mamas, which is an amazing app which helps mothers with postpartum depression and all stages of motherhood. So what we did with those guys was we just sent out general emails with a last chance discount. So it was a forever discount. We did forever, and what we saw was an amazing uplift here. So this is just a really kind of simple way to send something out with high design. So I want to show you the next example as well.
Hold on, Hannah. David left, so I'm gonna take over hosting. We got a question here, Hannah. Do you think, because it's heavy on the discount, do you think these devalue your product?
I don't think it does if it's executed in the right way. And it really depends on how you're going to be, how you're building your brand and how you're communicating. But a discount done in the right way, positioned in the right way, doesn't devalue your brand. With another product that I worked on, we launched with a discounted subscription. So we basically started with a founder offer where it was $9.99 per year. And we positioned that as a founder offer, it's 90% off. And this was the messaging about it the whole time. We then used this as an opportunity to gradually increase price. As we increased price, we saw a decrease in conversion, but every single time it came back up. And so we used all of these as opportunities to win people back. This is your last chance to convert. You've got 24 hours to get a $9.99 subscription. Then it went up to $19, then $29.99. And then, it just kept increasing in price. And we every single time managed to boost up our conversion back to back to our kind of discount levels. But I think it's totally fine. You also have to balance that with, would I rather send out a discount, or would I rather never acquire this customer? What's better for your brand? So onto the next one. This is just I wanted to show you that you don't need to do heavy design here. You can just use something super simple. And this email here had a 5% redemption rate. So 5% of people who opened this email took out that offer, which was really high. Actually, it was again, I think a 30% discount. But what I did here was I experimented a lot with first different valuations and then different asks. And what I saw was in this email here, I'm asking for them to help us out by leaving a review, by sharing. But I experimented with trying out just offering them a discount or asking them for help and then offering a discount. And what we saw whenever we asked for help is that no one helped us, but everyone took the discount because they felt that they were being oh, it's a secret. So, just experiment. It was totally fine that they weren't like going and posting tweets and things like that about us, but they felt like, oh, look, I've got this secret discount that I needed to do an action to redeem, but I don't even have to do the action. And we spoke to people afterwards, and that is how they felt. And so, it's just a bit of Jedi mind tricks here, but it had an extremely high redemption rate from this and other similar emails, which have just been text only. It literally says Hannah from Curio, who that's from. It was just coming from me, coming from my email address, and people could respond to me. I sent out a series of emails, all from myself. On day 3 of trial, I would email as an automated email every single person, asking them for feedback. And if they had used the app versus not to use the app, it would be a different email as well. So, just to try and understand from them so that then we could feedback, improve the product, and give them discounts kind of manually as well.
And I think you've tied the score. I like that.
I love how simple that is as an email, and that you highlighted, like, you don't need a whole team, with fancy design. And sometimes it's like really fancy design stuff actually convert less. And just sending a plain text like, hey, I'm Hannah and help us out, plain text email, a couple links, like sometimes those perform better. So it's nice that you don't need to necessarily do a bunch of fancy stuff to make this work.
Yeah, and you can test it out in a really, really easy way. You can find 100 email addresses of your users and then just email them from your own email, just copy and paste the same thing. And that will validate whether or not you should go and build a kind of more complicated flow. This is how we always start doing these things, with a small batch test and then rolling them out and expanding it.
Although be careful not to get your personal email marked as spam. So be careful with exactly what you do send in those emails, so you don't end up in a spam jail where your regular emails don't get delivered.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy if Steve wants to make any comments on these as well, obviously, but otherwise I can go through mine and then we'll go into Steve's beautiful slides.
Let's finish up yours, and then Steve has quite a few slides, so we'll jump to his next.
Cool. So the other thing I want to point out for Winbacks really is utilizing your website. Obviously everyone here probably is mobile apps, but what we don't talk about all of the time, although we're seeing a lot more of it lately, which is really exciting, is these kind of you've got several different web flows. You've got app to web, you've got web to app, you've got app to app, you've got web to web, all of these different things are happening now. And what you can't do is really, if you have a subscription in your product, or you've got in-app payments in your product that Apple are processing, you can't send in-app messages that link out from your app and talk about a discount that you can avail on your website. But what you can do is send emails. So what we do is we send out those emails like the ones on the previous slides, and then we optimize our web flow around this. So there's a lot of benefits to this. You can use Stripe or something similar, Paddle, and these guys will take between 1% and 3% of your revenue of the sale, versus Apple are taking between 15 and 30%, depending on how much you're earning. So it's quite a substantial change. And then on top of that, the other benefit is that you're going to get the money into your account in a couple of days versus a couple of months, which means that you've got more working capital to reinvest in other things. So these are some super simple ways to get started. Do I have one more slide?
Yes.
Okay, this is a really good one as well. So this was a nightlife app, actually. And the premise of this product was you would go to a bar and you'd show the app and you'd get a free drink. I don't drink anymore, but can blame this app. And anyway, what we would find was that if someone went and, we were talking earlier about these aha moments. If someone redeemed 2 drinks on different nights, that was their aha moment. That was when they were activated. So what we would do is we would identify when someone was activated, and then we would look at what is their average frequency cycle. So, Steve might go to get a drink every 40 days, and David might go every 30 days. So, and I might go every 20 days. So we've all got different frequency cycles here. So on day 21, I'm churned, but on day 21, both Steve and David are not churned. So we would take these people who are coming up to their churning point and then retarget them with ads that literally said, there's a free drink just around the corner from you. This was really effective because it was hyper local, but we can also do this and think about this in lots of different ways. Retarget with ads. Another thing that we've done with content apps as well is hacked Facebook's catalog API. So Facebook have a catalog API, which basically is mostly for e-com products. You go and swipe and you see loads and loads of nice shoes or whatever. But what we can do is plug in our content database into there. So when I was working at an audio journalism app, we had lots of content there, lots of journalism that was all narrated. They all had pictures, they all had a bio, they all had a blurb, they all had a title, they all had a deep link. After that, I worked at a tech app, so something similar to Headway. And at that company, and at both of those companies, what we did was we plugged the catalog API into our database so that we could surface retargeting ads showing new content, showing continuous new content to people, which would then deep link into their app and display that piece of content automatically for them. And those were very, very effective, not only at reactivating, but also at gaining sales, because people would then kind of see this, be like, that is actually an interesting thing for me. I want to read Toni Morrison's autobiography or whatever. And then they would come through, purchase to consume, basically. Yeah.
Cool. Next up, Steve. I know you've got quite a few slides. We've got about 20 minutes left. So we do want to leave a few minutes for Q&A, but if you want to just drive the show, Steve, and share your slides, and Hannah and I might interrupt you a little more than we interrupted Hannah, but
yeah, please.
Yeah.
Can you please answer some questions before getting to Steve? All right, I've seen some of the questions. Yeah. Okay.
Let's wait on the questions till the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about cart abandonment. And David, maybe this is where you can do your little teaser, because I wonder if you're talking about specifically, because I do have slides for the cancel thing that you mentioned too, which was something I was going to say for the in-person RevenueCat in San Francisco, but we can give them a little tease here. So I think this is the obvious thing. And this is a guest of mine from Zinio, their magazine app, but they implemented cart abandonments. So when you show intent, just like the Headway example, you pick the book and then you say no, that's a perfect opportunity. And what they found was they went from 2 reminders to 3. And a lot of times I feel like we don't want to bug our users, but they saw a huge improvement when they added 1 more reminder. So they do 1 hour after cart abandonment, 1 day, and then 1 week. And that's where they saw 13x improvement in conversions versus just 2 reminders. So, like for me, I know a lot of questions are about like, when is it too soon? When should you focus on it? I say immediately. We have one client that's doing about 60% of their revenues from the onboarding paywall with yearly 7-day trial. The next best revenue driver is they're discounted on their yearly, which is shown on the homepage, just like the Headway example as well. And that's 20% of their revenues. So it's a pretty decent amount of revenues coming from a discounted trial, because, the stats say that most users leave an app within 3 days, and then what's the stat? 77%?
7% of users will never come back to your app within 3 days.
Yeah, 77% won't come back to your app. I think it was 6 days, but won't come back within 6 days. And that's according to Adjust. Yeah.
And that's a great place to mention too, Steve. I think the whole, we don't want to bother people. If 60+% of people are never going to come back to your app anyway, those are the people you want to bug.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's like, maybe the active users in your app, you want to be a little more sensitive and make sure they're getting value and don't bug them too much, because if they're getting value, maybe they're, eventually going to pay, and you want to keep that user experience great for them. But the people who aren't coming back, that you can hit with push notifications, with emails and other things, if they're not active, fire away. And Jake Moore talks about this a lot, and he did this 4 years ago, started experimenting with this in his fitness AI app. Was that I think he ended up with a whole sequence of 6, 8, 10 discount messages where if by day 3 you hadn't accepted an offer, it discounts to 50%. If by day 7 you haven't accepted an offer, it discounts to 70%. And then that's unit economics. It's at what point is too cheap for the user? And in his app, there was pretty much no additional cost to serve these additional users. So he's like, if they've been in my app at all, if they'll pay me $1, I want $1 from them.
Yes.
And so he would just discount. And so, but those are the people you can bug, is the people who aren't going to ever come back to your app anyway. Offer as many times as works. And do as steep a discount as makes sense for your unit economics, and then also for the experience of it.
I was going to say, some of these things are so simple, and some of the biggest companies in the world are not doing them. Netflix, I canceled my Netflix subscription about a year ago, and I didn't receive one email. I got like, your subscription's confirmed, but that was it. I went back and checked actually, and there was nothing. And so these are simple things to do, but not everyone is doing them. So there's still opportunity here. And yeah, it's, after those first 3 days, this is prime time. And on top of that, one stat to share is at one of my companies, when we were going through another benchmarking session, we found out that the average cancellation time of a user was on day 280 of their year-long life cycle. So around day 280, for some reason, other than kind of day one and just before the end, this was where the majority of people were canceling. And so that meant then we were able to look at, okay, how are we making sure people are activated around this time? How can we make sure that then we're continuing their life cycle, renewing, making sure that they're receiving value around this time? So we would start building pools of audiences and targeting them around then as well, day 280. So
I love that, Hannah. I don't know if Calm's this smart, but what Calm did was they sent me an email roughly around the same time my yearly subscription was about to cancel, or not cancel, but I had an active, and they sent me an email saying, hey, 50% off our lifetime offer. I ended up buying it. It was a 7-day sale. Last day, I bought on the last day. I think I bought on day 8. But anyways, I don't even use the app anymore. But, when people talk about like devaluing the app, you're not devaluing. In my opinion, I think you're devaluing your app by not getting people to pay for it. If you trust that you built a great product, get people to pay for it. You deserve it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, this first impression is so important that people who don't get beyond that don't actually get to see the value. 80% I've seen of the trials taken out happen within the first 2 minutes of someone downloading your product. 80% happen in the first 2 minutes. And so, what's happening with everyone else then? Those ones that take out the trial in the first 2 minutes are going to be less likely to convert than the ones that take out after the first 2 minutes. But the number of people is so much vaster that it only makes sense to continue asking in that beginning, in that onboarding as well. But people are just not seeing getting to the value. And most apps actually don't have this retention problem that we speak about. They have an activation problem. People aren't getting to that point where we're seeing any of this value.
And this is where the lowest hanging fruit is, to your point. It's like, this is where the most users are when they're first getting into your app. It's like 100% of people see 100% of people who open your app see that first onboarding page. Mm-hmm. And if 2% drop and don't see the second onboarding page, and eventually you get to your paywall and maybe only, hopefully, 80-90% of people are seeing your paywall. Well, 2 years in, you've had a subscriber, and like I was saying earlier, you've got 1,000 subscribers right now, and you're doing a win back at day 280. It's like, that can be meaningful, especially for a larger app where the numbers are big. But for a smaller app, especially early in the journey, this is where you're going to see the most low hanging fruit, is winning back on those initial trial starts and those initial opportunities to convert those users.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right, David. I think I've taken over the complete
control. Yeah, no, take it over, Steve. Take it over. Go to your next slide.
Okay.
All right, send discounts to trial convert cancellations. This is a great strategy. Look, I think discounting on the onboarding will have the biggest impact regardless, right? If you discount during the onboarding, the stats say most people who buy during the onboarding process, they, like Hannah said, they activate a trial, they cancel right away. People who buy during that first time user experience. That's their hottest. So make sure you try to discount. If you do nothing else, if you add discounting, I think it will make a huge difference in your bottom line. But this is one app. I want to show you some studies. So like, send discounts to trial cancellations. Here's one app that I took I know what the app, if you guys want to know privately, I'll tell you. But anyways, they said welcome. And literally like 2 minutes later, they said save 20% off our pro. And then you'll like this. it takes them to the web flow. So I download the app, I signed up for the app, and then they said, welcome, here's your discount right away. And that's what I mean. Send them a discount because you do want to, you're going to lose them eventually, right? You have a small window of time to try to get them to convert because they're going to stop caring about it. All right, here's a friend of mine, Masood. Here's what he did when people canceled the trial. So like Hannah said, if you cancel the trial, you can show it in-app event or in-app messaging. You can also send them a push. And so he sent them a push. He said, come back and save. Open the app and save 50% off. And then boom, it has that. And then that was making some money for him. I love this paywall. And I think this paywall would work with the cancel stuff that you're talking about, David. So this is a paywall that they use on the discounting in secret offer unlocked. And it says, hey, you know, you can save 66% off right now. And it feels very secretive if you can only show it in the right spots too. So I think these are no-brainer things to do. If I had to pick one, I would still pick the discounting during the onboarding as the number one thing where we've seen the best results. Here's another.
Yeah. And one more interjection real quick, Steve, because I was going to say this before, but if you are worried about, if you're worried about devaluing your product and then especially like getting somebody who's only paying you $20 a year for the next decade, you can even use a promotional offer where it's 80% off the first year, or and you can I believe you can even set dollar amount. So like if your subscription is normally $60 annually and you want to go really crazy and just say $5 for the first year, but then it renews at that $60 a year, like that's one way to not like devalue your product. It's like, hey, we want you to experience the value, and if you're confident once they're experiencing the value that it's going to actually be worth that $60, use a promotional offer where the next year renews at a higher rate. Like Apple and Google have both given us as developers tools to do that kind of stuff.
And this is something that's becoming more and more common as well. You know, this wasn't as typical. I mean, promotional offers have only been around for the last kind of 4 years or so. But before that, anyway, you were only able to kind of have a fixed price, which is why when you go into your subscription settings, you'll see like 400 different prices sometimes for apps, and you can just decide how much you want to pay for it. But since then, you know, we've had these subscription offers, and what I've seen is a lot of companies talk about how high their conversion is, but they don't talk about their retention, because a lot of them, what they'll do is they'll have this very long onboarding flow. And then it will be like, now you've got to pay $1 to be able to see the answer to your survey. You know, I went through one myself for this. I was like, my friend had been talking to me about color matching, and I only wear black, so I don't know what color is matching. But I was like, let me go find out. And I found an app. I went through, and the I don't know, the onboarding flow must have taken me about 9 hours. And then at the end, it told me, you know, you have to pay $1 to see your answer. And I was like, okay, I'll just pay my dollar, you know. And then I paid my dollar and it didn't even tell me. And I'm like, immediately cancel. So anyway, this is to say a lot of products are now having this kind of pay $1. You'll see this a lot on kind of web flows as well. There's a lot of companies that are now doing web to app ads. So they will go and take you through this long onboarding flow on web and then ask you to pay for something at the end of it. But they'll have a lot of the time not as high conversion to their next billing period. But yeah, anyway, that is to say, just make sure that your product is actually backing it up. Yeah. You know, is your product actually delivering? And that's really kind of the most important part of all of this. Is your product good? And bringing people back and actually executing what people are wanting to execute with it.
Yeah.
Back to you, Steve.
All right, Steve. Yeah, take it away, Steve. I know you have a few more slides, and we'll get to the Q&A.
My son's texting me because I have screen time on him. He's like, I need access to websites. Please turn off screen time. So I'm turning it off. All right. So here's the last flow. I really like this flow because you're sort of guiding the user all the way through. So this is an app that I don't know if they want to be known for doing this. So I'm not sharing what the app is, but personally got to work with him. Anyways, it's in the settings. In the settings of your app, he has this unsubscribe or cancel. And then he's like, do you want to? Yes. Well, gives him a discount to try to win him back. And then if you say, no, I want to lose my discount, they do ask you why. And then once you hit unsubscribe, they take you immediately to the App Store subscription page. So I really like that funnel because they're sort of guiding the user. Obviously, people know you can go straight into it. But for those who don't know, they're guiding them straight into that funnel and then trying to get feedback at the same time right here while trying to win them back. So I think that was it for me. Oh, yeah. Here's another one that so when I was teasing with the discounting, here's one thing that we're testing within our app right now. And the early results show that this is winning, but it's the pay what you want model. So we have this gift for you. Like, I'm not just saying it, I'm applying these same strategies myself in our own app. We have this little gift for you. Half the users are getting a straight 50% off this one with no options. And then the other half are getting a pay what you want offer. And so we have this offer where it gives you the 50% off. You can slide it and get a little bit better offer, or you can just pay the 7-day free trial one. And this one is winning because, Jake Moore says this too, and I know RevenueCat, you guys have talked about this, like 3 plans better than 2 plans better than 1. And so we're trying to give them the option, make them feel like they're in control. And we're seeing pretty good results with letting them decide what they want to pay, although they're not technically deciding everything.
Very cool. All right, well, let's get to Q&A. So we have 5 more minutes for Q&A, but I talked to Steve and Hannah ahead of time, and we can go over a little bit. So we'll go through the questions, as I mentioned, in the order of most voted. So I'm going to pull that up and look at the upvotes. So the first question, 8 upvotes. That's a lot. How many downloads per day and conversions to paid users per week or month should you have before starting to think about win-back campaigns? This is a good one because we've kind of been, talking about this throughout the whole presentation. Steve, I'll go with you first. So what are your thoughts? Like, when does it make sense? And maybe you can like go through the phases, because maybe it's like everybody should be doing those like trial cancellation win backs, but then maybe there is a threshold before you build out a whole CRM where you're sending emails to subscribers who churn to year in or whatever. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. And Hannah, you jump in after this. I think immediately. Like, I know there's been a few other questions. When do you want to do it? When do you prioritize it versus acquiring new users? Immediately. That's what I would do. I just think I'm more, and maybe I rather you, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I'd rather you really be aggressive from a monetization standpoint versus being less aggressive. The data just pans out, right? They don't care about you as much as you think they care about you. You built a great app, but they don't honestly think that either. So like, trying to get them to convert immediately is almost like, do it right away. I don't care. Like, literally, we build discounts flows as an MVP just to see what we can do. And then we can play around with the prices, things like that. Because if we see high churn, trial to paid being really low, that's probably a price issue that we need to figure out, not a value issue. But so anyways, I would say immediately. And then Hannah can get into the more sophisticated stuff.
Yeah, well, and maybe then, Hannah, when do you think like more sophisticated CRM stuff comes into play? Like, somebody's been a subscriber and you want to win them back to subscriber. Like, and I guess, we've kind of been talking about those numbers. It's like, if you have 1,000 subscribers, and you're trying to win back subscribers who have previously been subscribed, and the best in the industry are doing 30%, then like, okay, maybe out of those 1,000 subscribers, you're going to win back 300. So then it's kind of an equation at that point.
Oh, David's sound dropped out for me, but hopefully you can hear me, and I'll just hope you can you hear me all right? I can't hear you guys, so
I'm just kidding. I just like to give you fun of yours. I heard everything.
I can hear you now.
I heard everything.
Okay, you're all, huh? Okay, so what I would say really is, where is your biggest opportunity at the moment? Obviously we want to be able to do everything all at the same time, but sometimes there are going to be things which are going to be bigger opportunities than others. And starting with winbacks, obviously we should be thinking in the right way right from the beginning, setting up the things that we're doing in a way that is to foster conversion, to monetize. But you might not think, okay, I'm going to build in all of these kind of deep flow retention win back models like right from day one, because that won't be your priority. Optimizing your onboarding to make sure that you're, like Steve was showing these discount offers after your initial paywall. Some of these things will be a higher priority than something that's a deep CRM. Some of the companies that we've worked with have started with very, very simple CRM and then identified, okay, now we've gotten a really good place with acquisition. we're actually day zero profitable with acquisition, but how can we now make sure people are continuing to come back? How can we eke out a little bit more of that? So then CRM becomes a priority because we've identified that now. With one of our companies, we were getting, I mean, their cost per trials for a $60 subscription product was like $6-7. And so we were acquiring really well. But what we've noticed now is there are people canceling. We're getting loads and loads of installs. So now we're working on CRM. We just jump between like, what is our biggest priority at the moment? Where's our biggest area of opportunity? What is the lever that if we lean on this, if we push on this hard, we'll have the biggest impact on our North Star metric, which is going to be ultimately, your North Star metric is going to be related to revenue. So sometimes that will be winbacks. After we had the benchmarking session I mentioned at the beginning, and we saw that we were only winning back 6% and others in our peer group were winning back 35%. That then became, there is a big opportunity here. We're losing out on a lot of people, and increasing that was a very kind of low-hanging fruit way of increasing our revenue. So I would always say go after low-hanging fruit first. What's the least effort thing that you can do to have the highest impact? And at some point that will be getting deeper and deeper into your funnel, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And then the second question was actually very similar. So I think we'll kind of skip over it. But I'll read the question and then give a quick thing and then we'll move on. But for earlier stage app, when do you prioritize win-back campaigns versus acquisition and retention? And I think we kind of already answered that, but the answer there is like, like Hannah was saying, I mean, it's a math equation. Like, how many users do you have coming in, and then what are the opportunities? And as we've been saying, that the highest opportunity is in those very early stages. And so that's probably where you're going to want to focus. All right. The next question is also from Aaron. What if they close the whole app when they see the hard paywall? That's a great question. I'll take off with this one, and then both of y'all can jump in. This is actually exactly what I'm doing in my weather app. So I have a hard paywall. Our trial start rate has been fluctuating depending on the source of traffic, but our trial start rates, the max trial start rate we've seen is in the like 40% range, which is actually really good. Wow. But it was because we had really high intent traffic. But it's kind of settled back down in the like, I think 10 to 20% trial start rate, which is like if 80% of people who go through the hassle of downloading my app and opening it aren't even starting a free trial, like that's a low hanging fruit kind of opportunity. And so this is exactly what I'm doing in my weather app, is that when people don't start the free trial and they just close the app, we're actually just doing a local push notification because it's easy, it's cheap, it doesn't require sophisticated infrastructure, it doesn't require setting up CRM or campaigns or anything like that. All we're doing is when you close the app without having started a free trial on our hard paywall, it pops up a local notification that says, hey, I forget exactly the wording, but it's like, limited time offer, use the app free for 7 days. And so that's a great way to get people back, is like sending those offers immediately. Especially if you don't have push notification access, you still can send that first like local notification. Steve, it looks like you have some additional kind of nuance and some examples here.
No, this is exactly what you're talking about, right, David? Yeah. Zero is a hard paywall. This is what you alluded to this too, where you can give a 1 month $3.99. I've always wanted to test this. $3.99 for the first month, but then renews at the year, or you can do the 7-day free trial for the yearly. And then, as you can see, here's what I like to do: 8:47 p.m. close to my bedtime. 5 minutes later, I get a push notification saying, hey, you can start using Zero for free, no subscription required, just open the app. And wouldn't you know it? So when you tap on that push notification, you get this little paywall, the X magically appears, and then you can hit that X and start using the app for free. That I just want to give you visuals of what Dave was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we've done similar in the past for the audio journalism app, straight away, if someone didn't take out the trial, we would send them a push notification saying, you've got 10 free stories to listen to. That would then go through and unlock the ability to start listening. We did 10 because 6 was our activation point. So, at 10, someone has blasted through that activation point, we would then give them countdowns. You've got 9 left, you've got 8 left. And then, you're limited in the things that you can do if you haven't collected any kind of other first-party data beyond these kind of silent push notifications that just go to the notification center. But the other thing that you can do, especially if you're a growing product, is you can hack retargeting a little bit on ads. So what you can do is create an audience of people who have opened your app but not done any of the kind of further steps, and then do a link click campaign. So you can optimize it for really high up the funnel, and because it's such a targeted audience, you're going to get very cheap clicks, in the kind of 20-30 cents mark usually. And then this is going to bring people back into your app, because hopefully you've got a deep link that then when someone clicks on the ad, that deep links back into the product. So we've seen some really good successes here. Retargeting is a little bit harder now, obviously, because of all the fun things our friends at Apple did in 2021, but this is a kind of good hacky way to be able to do that. And because it's a top of funnel optimization point, it's usually quite a cheap thing to get going.
And how many do you need to upload an email list, or is that all everything you're saying all through the Facebook ads platform?
Yeah. As long as you're posting back that data. So Facebook ads will, or whatever it's called now, will be able to see that there is the app install has been triggered. And then, from your MMP, you'll be sending back kind of all media sources anyway, and that includes organic. And so from that point of view, then you can create an audience, which then excludes people who've done a registration, for example. So there you go, everybody.
Very cool. All right, next question is from Michael. What do you think about zero cost, no credit card required free trials for app subscriptions? Are there downsides based on consumer behavior to have a zero friction trial? I'll start again on this one because this is exactly what I'm doing with my hard paywall and giving 7 days completely free. My thought in implementing this is that the hard paywall, we're collecting the low-hanging fruit of people who are willing to do the auto-renewing trial. Because, and again, there are so many consumers that are very familiar with this pattern now, where they start a free trial, they immediately go cancel. And so I think most apps should probably start with a auto renewing free trial, because enough people are going to do that, and then it is going to auto renew, and it's just a simple flow. It's the happy flow. It's the easy flow. And I've even heard from apps who've had that, like the non-renewing trial, and when they switched to a renewing trial, they made way more money. But then, and this is what I'm doing, is like, okay, we have the hard paywall, we have the auto renewing free trial. If they opt out of that, is when we offer them 7 days non-renewing. And it's an experiment. I mean, we'll see how it goes. But the idea there is, like, if you're really delivering value, and again, it's like if they've downloaded my weather app, like there's something they saw in it that they liked. If they get a week into using it, because we're still only giving them 7 days free, and then it starts locking down the features that they can use, like, then are they going to pay? I don't know. Ideally, it's going to be a high percentage, but whatever percentage it is, it's like those are customers we're not capturing now anyway. And so it's just another opportunity to catch some of those early funnel people who already said they're not willing to start an auto renewing free trial.
Can I go?
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that we've done in the past as well with this, for one of our products, we started experimenting this and then rolled it out on lots of others, was have that gated trial up front. Have it, but then when someone dismisses it, then we had a cute little modal that appeared that then said, we've got a gift for you, here's a surprise. Now you get an ungated trial. So we usually call them a gated trial and an ungated trial. So an ungated trial requires no credit card. It just basically changes the authentication level that you have and unlocks all of the features. So that was something that we did that we saw really good success with. We had a very high kind of trial opt-in anyway, and we had a good conversion, but this then helped to capture people who hadn't wanted to do that. And on top of that, then whenever it got to the end of that period, what we did then was ask them to opt out. They would have to say, yes, I want to decrease my I want less access. I want to get rid of unlimited access. And then they would have to kind of decide that actively. So then from that paywall, from that opt-out paywall, we saw really good conversion from this as well.
Very cool. Steve, anything to add, or you want to jump to the next question? All right.
No, go ahead.
We're going to take 2 more questions because I don't want this webinar to go on for hours. So I'm going to take the next question in the vote. And while we're answering this question, if you see any questions you really want answered, go ahead and upvote, upvote, upvote. So the next highest upvoted question is: most win-back campaigns involve discounts. Aren't these devaluing your product value? And aren't they also teaching the user to wait for discounts rather than converting if you marinate them? I love that word. If you marinate them enough through a solid CRM strategy. Great question. I mean, we kind of already discussed this, but I'd love to maybe go a little deeper, like on that idea of like devaluing your product. Steve, why don't you kick us off? Because this is something I know you think a lot about.
I'll keep it short. No. No. Go ahead and you take it away.
We have to think about just how we're doing it, really. I think we have to think about also how are other products behaving and what are other products training people to do. So, a lot of products will be doing this discounting thing. That's just how it is now. So you might decide that you're the economist and you might never want to do a discount, or once a year you do get the economist for $1 a month or something like that, and it's a time-bound thing. But I would say even if you're not doing discounts regularly, or as a part of your onboarding flow, then you should be thinking about how can we leverage discounts at other times of the year. That might be in January because you're a health product, then you can center a campaign around this. But really what we want to do is think about how are we not leaving money on the table? How can we keep our business going? And really that's it. Do we want to keep our business going or not? Because if we don't, then we probably don't need to offer discounts.
And I'll say too, I've been surprised at how much some of these big, like household name, great brand apps do discounting. So I'm not an active AllTrails user, but I downloaded it multiple times over the years, signed up, and I regularly get emails from them offering 50% off, 30% off. And sometimes they'll tie it to, hey, it's the summer, it's hiking season, the weather's turning nice, 50% off to start your subscription. Sometimes it's a Black Friday offer. But even some of these biggest apps in the world, I mean, AllTrails, I think now is doing, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Last I checked on App Figures. And then we don't even know, how much they're making on the web. So they're probably, $200-300 million a year app, which is insane. And like, one of the probably top 100 apps in the industry, and they do a ton of discounting. So if a big kind of household, great brand kind of name like AllTrails can do it, and to Hannah's point though, it's like, I think they do it in a very classy way. I mean, maybe, for your brand, you don't want to have these like super aggressive, 30% discount, they hit X, and then 50% discount, they hit X, and then 80% discount. Like maybe that feels a little cheap for some brands. For me, like I'm not trying to be AllTrails. Like I want to just make my app successful. So I'm maybe a little less sensitive to like the like, brand aspect of that. But even AllTrails, I think does it in a classy way where it's not that discounts devalue your product. It's how you do it can maybe create the perception of devaluing your product more so than offering discounts. I mean, everybody offers discount. The whole Black Friday thing is like every big brand. Apple for the longest time didn't do it. And if you notice in the last like 5 years, they're doing back to school. Actually, they've done back to school promotions forever, but only allowed students. But now I see on 9to5 Mac all the time, like AirPods at the lowest price ever on Amazon, and get a MacBook for $500 off. It's like, if Apple is doing it, you can do it. It's going to be okay.
It's just all about how it's done. I downloaded the Temu app recently. I don't know if you guys have ever downloaded that. Have you tried it out, David?
I have not. No.
Okay, download it after this and just tell me
All
what, because that was an experience downloading that product and seeing like spin this, pot of gold, discount offer. I just was like trying to look at the app to see, okay, what's going on here. And it took me about 5 minutes to try and even look at it because it was just pop-up after pop-up after pop-up. And Yeah, I did buy beads for friendship bracelets. So I did do my sale. But, it wasn't because of, I was getting 90% off because I spun a wheel. It actually got in the way of everything. I started recording halfway through because I was like, how long is this going to go on for? And then every single time you open the app again, it's just 10 more discounts that are like, you've got 9 minutes to use this. It's just ultimate kind of scarcity, use this now, use this now. And you don't need to be that extreme. That does damage your brand if you're thinking about it from that perspective, but you can do it in a very kind of nice, tasteful way as well. So
Very cool. All right, we'll get to the last question here. This has been a lot of fun, and you two are a lot of fun. We've both done podcasts together. I know you two have done podcasts and live webinars together. So this was fun. I'm kind of sad to be taking the last question here. The last question I'm seeing most upvoted is, this is a good one. We've kind of talked about this, but we can kind of give the last take. When is the best time to send a win-back offer? Steve, you've been kind of quiet in the Q&A. Go for it.
You guys are covering it. I don't need to talk all the time. I honestly think it's during the onboarding. That's my personal opinion. I would just do it right on the onboarding on the homepage and try to do it. I mean, like Hannah said, the messaging is so key. One of the paywalls that I saw where they're doing discount is like, hey, our users work out 3 times a week and follow the food system, lose up to 40%. We want you to achieve your weight loss goals, and here's why we're offering you 25%. So I would do it almost immediately. And that's where we've seen, if you're looking for something that's going to move the needle immediately, that's what I would do personally.
Hannah, what are your thoughts?
What do you think?
Are you ASMRing me? I would say that is objectively the correct answer. However, what we need to do is also look at where is our biggest area of opportunity, and our biggest area of opportunity might not be in the onboarding right now. We might be performing really well, and it might be later on, after someone has managed to experience a bit more of the product. So I would be looking at, every single screen of my journey, looking at how are people engaging with my main function, whether that's listening to something or measuring something or whatever it is. How many times does someone need to do that, and looking at what the drop-offs are, and then centering my win-backs around this as well. But yeah, to get started in the onboarding as early as possible, send out push notifications, be tasteful, but start early and start often.
Yeah, and then to my point earlier about the term win-back being a broad term, and then to Hannah's point about looking for those moments of opportunity, maybe your best quote unquote win back opportunity is to move the paywall earlier in your experience. So, I mean, that's like the very first place to look is like how many people, I mean, again, Jake Moore and Steve and all of us have been talking about this a lot the last few years. How many people are even seeing your paywall? And if only 30% of people are even ever seeing your paywall, then your best like win back opportunity is maybe just to put that paywall sooner. And so it's not even necessarily offering a discount or traditionally thinking of win back, but it's like creating a monetization opportunity where there wasn't previously a monetization opportunity. And then that's just a math equation, like how many people are seeing it. And so if they are seeing your paywall and 90% of people are seeing your paywall, and 90% of those people who see your paywall are Xing out, well, that's a lot of people who get to see your win back. If you put the win back way deeper and only 10% of people are seeing the win back, well, if you have a 10% conversion on 10% of your audience, that's much lower than if you have a 10% conversion on 90%. 90% of 90, whatever that is, like 81% of your audience. And so that's kind of part of how to look at it is like part of looking at the win back opportunity is how many people are going to see it. And the more people you can get to see it, the higher the likelihood of conversion. But again, to Hannah's point, it's like, if you're a freemium app, and people are sticking around and staying engaged with the app, then maybe showing it to 50% of people who've stayed engaged, you're going to have a higher conversion at that point because they're engaged than if you do show it immediately. And so it's also product dependent, but broadly, it's a game of numbers. Like, what's your conversion rate and how many people are seeing it? And so you either want to maximize for that the moment of showing it for conversion rate and or the number of people. And if you're showing it early and having very low conversion rate, try it later and see if you can increase that conversion rate and see if the math nets out.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers and it's a game of experiments. You just test all of these things. We've told you guys a lot of different options, a lot of different things that you can test, but now it's really up to you to go in and start implementing them and seeing which things work for you. So yeah, it's experiment, and just really try and get the reps in with this testing, with this experimenting, with how you're running them, with reaching statistical significance, because you have to start somewhere.
Yep. I think that's a great place to end. So we've talked about a lot of things. Go do it.
David, what's the new feature? What's the feature? People have asked for it in the comments. Are you going to talk about it? The RevenueCat feature?
I don't know if I'm authorized to talk. Okay. I'll drop it in at this very last. By the time this is on YouTube, we'll probably have announced the beta. It's actually the cancellation flow that you showed. So we're going to make it dead simple for RevenueCat customers to have a button that says manage my subscription. And then that will show a page where you can ask questions, you can offer discounts, and then take them to the Apple page versus like having a managed subscription button that takes them right to the Apple page. So it's going to be very configurable where you can, ask different questions, make different offers. So it's going to be kind of a cancellation flow, automated cancellation flow that's super easy to drop into your app. So.
Love that.
Yeah, little teaser there. I don't know exactly when that's going to be in beta, but very soon. We might edit this part out of the YouTube video, depending on when that happens. I'm blaming Steve, anybody from RevenueCat who's listening to this who didn't want me to tease the feature. It's Steve's fault. But I mean, it's really fun working at RevenueCat because we're getting to build more and more of these things. Like this is what I do on the podcast. So we talk to experts, we hear what experts are saying is going to work, and then we go make it easier for developers to do that. And so we actually have a lot of really cool stuff that we're working on for this fall. Stuff like that of like, it's going to help you win back users, help you convert more users, like build better paywalls, like all those kinds of things. So yeah. And then last thing as we wrap up, and Steve kind of alluded to this as well, Hannah, Steve, and I will all be live in person in San Francisco on the 25th for RevenueCat's first annual App Growth Annual. So if you have not seen those announcements yet and applied to attend in person, go to appgrowthannual.com. Hannah, I think we still need to determine, but Hannah's doing a workshop, Steve's doing a workshop on ASO. We have some really great speakers. Tammy from the Google Play team is going to be talking about monetization around the world. Nikita Beer signed on. He's going to do some unconventional user acquisition tactics, which he's very famous for, having sold apps to Facebook and Discord, and had I think 2 or 3 apps, and then a bunch of apps he advises get to #1 on the App Store. We're also going to have Phil Carter talking about the subscription app value loop. That's going to be kind of the keynote kicking off, and kind of the theme of the conference is those pillars of his subscription value loop. So yeah, going to be a really cool event for those who can't attend in person or don't get selected. The spots are very limited, so don't be offended if you don't get selected for live attendance. But we will be streaming a lot of the sessions, so definitely register for the online event as well. But with that, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hannah. As I said, this was so fun. The two of you are a blast to chat with, and it was really fun to host this with the two of you. And look forward to seeing you in a month in San Francisco.
No, see you in a month, and thank you for having us.
Bye.